This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Brian Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
And welcome to the latest and freshest edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. I am your host, Vito and Chirco, alongside my usual sidekick and broadcast partner in fun. That is Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles and Matt O'Roon. John, it's been a while. How are you doing?
Vito, always enjoy talking baseball with you, even in the Major League Baseball offseason. We're going to talk about the World Series. We're going to talk about controversy. The Detroit Tigers kind of have shaken up their coaching staff, and people have been moved around. And a friend of the podcast has been advanced and moved up, so I can't wait to talk to you about that. So let's jump right in, talk some baseball. Really fascinating World Series in that each game that took place was won by the road team. The first time in sports history where 7 games took place, but no home team won. And it was a fascinating series because, you know, you and I both thought that, you know, Houston was probably going to take it down. I think you had it maybe earlier, maybe in 6 games. I had it in 7. And when, you know, the Nationals got out to the 2-game lead there, you're like, oh, you know, that's a pretty good start. But then the momentum swung, and there were 3 games that took place in Washington, and the Astros came out and were dominant. You're like, okay, they're going to return back home to Houston. All they got to do is win 1 of 2 games. And it didn't happen. Game 6, Game 7. And, you know, I guess I'll start by asking you this. Justin Verlander takes the ball, takes the mound in Game 6 with an opportunity, you know, to win the World Series in front of his home crowd. Doesn't get the job done. And I think a lot of people in Detroit were kind of rooting for Justin, and they were still kind of behind him. I was of the opinion that, you know what? Good for him. You know what? Good. I'm glad that he failed. He's not with Detroit anymore. So, yes, I thank him for the work that he did for the Tigers, but at the end of the day, seeing him fail was kind of exhilarating. I was like, over in the World Series. And it went to a Game 7, and the Nationals ended up winning, and it was a fascinating series. I liked the World Series. It had a bunch of drama, and when a World Series goes to 7 games, you're definitely intrigued by it. So, you know, there's a lot of storylines, and it was great for the Nationals, and now several members of the Tigers rotation when they were here have now won a championship ring. Not with the Tigers, but they've gone on elsewhere, and they've earned their ring. So for Tiger fans watching, it was another like jab in the heart in terms of the fact that they didn't win. But starting off with Verlander, I was kind of rooting against him.
Well, it's easy to do so, too, when the Astros have been known now as stealing signs.
We shall talk about that later.
How about that? Installing cameras and getting rid of a lot of professional scouts with many years of Major League Baseball scouting experience and replacing these scouts supposedly with cameras and stealing the opponent's signs. And in 2017, in the playoffs, hey, maybe it even happened this season in this postseason as well. Now, Verlander, yes, still has not notched a single victory in the World Series in his career individually. Obviously, has the World Series championship from 2 years ago, winning it with the Astros in 2017. So, devastatingly, had not won a World Series with the Tigers. All of that time spent in Motown as the ace of the Detroit Tigers rotation, yet never won it all in Motown. But he's gotten his. Scherzer has gotten his now as well, and so has Anibal, Sanchez, Fernando, Rodney at 45 or 50-something. Who the hell knows how old Fernando Rodney really is? But those guys have finally gotten their rings, and devastatingly not with the Detroit Tigers.
So what'd you make overall of the World Series? Were you okay with the Nationals winning? I mean, it was fascinating in that Scherzer missed the start. His back locked up, and it was freaky in terms of the fact that he's a warrior. So for Max Scherzer to miss a start really indicated that something was seriously wrong. And you realize, okay, is he going to come back to be able to pitch? And he did, and he was effective. So for the Nationals, it was a wild ride for them, and to see them celebrate, it's nice for, a franchise like that, a franchise that's been moved and things like that to come back and to have some success. So for Max Scherzer, obviously in Detroit, the scene that everybody's talking about that has, captivated everybody after the game was him embracing Anibal Sanchez. And they're like, we won! And everyone's like, I'm not crying, you're crying. And it was like, it was nice to see. I wasn't that emotional about it, but it was cool to see a band of brothers because they had experienced a loss, in terms of, playing for the Tigers and not having the success and experiencing heartbreak. So to see that, it's nice because I think championships are when they're won and you've had some struggle. I think it means more. And I think the players, when they experience some adversary or some controversy or some struggles, then when they actually do come out and win, it makes it for a nice celebration. So it was nice to see. But all in all, I thought the national story was captivating, at least for a World Series that I think maybe not a lot of people were really into.
Ratings weren't great, but all road victories by both squads in 7 games, so it went the distance. That was terrific to see. And finally, these ex-Tigers get their World Series championships. So Scherzer was just good enough. Anibal was pretty darn good throughout the postseason. Himself, Rodney, was horrible, but he got a ring as well. All 3 former Tigers getting their rings, and really, they deserved it. It was long overdue for all 3 guys. The thing is, unfortunately, in all pro sports, not everybody wins a championship. It's not going to happen for everybody. And when you look at the Tigers, there's a few guys, or a tremendous amount of guys on that roster that will never win it all, at least while donning the Old English D. Good thing is, Miguel Cabrera already won a World Series championship way back in the day in 2003 with the then Florida Marlins beating the New York Yankees when the Marlins were all young dudes, and they upset the Yankees in the Fall Classic in that season. So at least Cabby has gotten his. He won't be getting one with the Tigers anytime soon, and that is very easily said. Really quick, another caveat with the Nationals winning is that Bryce Harper wasn't a member of the 2019 Nationals that won it all. Finally got over the hump. Never had any postseason success while Bryce Harper was a member of the Nats. And then Harper leaves last offseason, signs that massive deal, long-term deal with the rival Philadelphia Phillies. He's gone, and the Nationals win it in the season after he leaves. How about that? The beauty of baseball and how that can happen in pro sports where a massive guy, a guy with a massive name can leave your franchise, and the following season, you win it all. What a storybook season and ending for the Nationals in 2019.
Good story, too. And then I think immediately Strasburg opted out. That's one thing I remember telling my wife was, look, this guy has over $100 million left on his deal. He's opting out. He's going to test the waters, and what a great comeback story there in terms of a guy that's battled arm injuries. And, I was telling Andrea, I was like, could you imagine if you have a contract that says you're guaranteed to get $100 million, and then you just sign a paper that says, okay, I want to relinquish that? Because more is coming?
He's got teams coveting him. They will pay him even more handsomely moving forward over the long term. The Bronx Bombers, if you know there's a chance of the Yankees paying you, you're going to test out the open market. And
I don't know if I could
ever for Steven Strasburg.
I don't know if I could ever do it. I don't know if my hand would ever go to the contract to be like, I want out because.
But come on, you would want more. Come on.
Yes.
Come on, money hungry guy. A lot of us are money hungry, and we know we can get more in the open market. We're going to test the open market, man. Test those free agent waters. And that's what Steven Strasburg is doing after winning a World Series championship with the team that drafted him out of San Diego State way back now.
So do you think the Nationals were the best team this year in terms of maybe getting hot late? Because remember their start. I think they were like 13, 14 games under 500.
19-31, the same mark for 50 games as the Tigers at that point. Tigers and Nats, same record at one point in the 2019 regular season, John. How laughable is that now? And then to know the Tigers finished with how many wins? Less than 50. 47 wins. Ooh. 47 at 114. Dead last. Worst in all of baseball. And then you have a team that started off with the same mark through 50 games that wins it all in the end. A storybook ending to the Nats season, which didn't include Bryce Harper once again. And I harped upon that all season long, and on past editions of Tigers Talk without you, John, I said it too, how the Natsmen got it done despite not having Harper in the heart of their order, man. How great of a story was that for the Nationals? I mean, just gratifying as well on so many levels for that fan base that never witnessed any kind of postseason success. Max Scherzer and Anibal Sanchez, all of that postseason disappointment with the Tigers, especially in 2012 and in 2013, never got over the hump and won the big one. And they finally have gotten it done in 2019 as their respective careers, talking about Scherzer and Sanchez once again, are dipping, I think. They're not the same high-caliber arms as they used to be. Sanchez has had the resurgence. Scherzer is still good, but he's not great. He's not elite anymore, like his former teammate with the Tigers and now Houston Astro in Justin Verlander, who just won, by the way, his second American League Cy Young Award. And I kind of want to transition to that, as I did talk about the World Series for a long, long time on past editions of Tigers Talk 2 without you anyways. So the Nats, to sum it all up, a great season, and they got hot at the right time, John. They weren't the best team from day one. Obviously, based on what I already said about the Nats, they weren't the most talented team, and they weren't in the postseason either. But I thought, remember, I gave the Nats a lot of love on Twitter as August came, and as the season went on and on, I said, watch out for the Washington Nationals. You can look up the tweet. I should have pinned the tweet to my profile at Vito Jerome on Twitter by now, but I was out in front, really carrying the Nats water for a long time, talking about their chances of making that run. And they did. They finally got over the hump, and they captured a World Series championship subsequently as well. Anyways, to these award winners, specifically Justin Verlander, now getting his second American League Cy Young Award. And you know what? He deserved it this year, but you could argue he deserved it in previous years even more. You can argue that his teammate, now a free agent himself like Steven Strasburg, who will be paid handsomely this offseason, and Garrett Cole, deserved it more. He deserved to win the American League Cy Young Award even more than Justin Verlander, who was very deserving, and I'm glad he got his second, once again, Cy Young Award in his big league career. But Verlander really deserved it in previous years even more than this season. And I think the voters from the Baseball Writers Association of America were guilted into voting for JV almost because they know that JV really was slighted in previous seasons. And we remember a couple of years back when Verlander did not win it, his wife, supermodel Kate Upton, had some choice words that she expressed on Twitter about JV not getting it done. So, you know what? He got effed over a couple of years ago, and Kate Upton made it known to the masses on Twitter using her celebrity status and Twitter platform to express that. But anyways, as I digress here, Verlander finished with an ERA below 3 for a second straight campaign. And it's something how really he's gotten better. As soon as he hit 35 and was done pitching for the Tigers, he got even better, John. And last year, a 2.52 ERA. This year, a 2.58 ERA in 121 games, which really helped him win that Cy Young Award this season as well. A whip below 1, 0.803, which I think was the best whip in a single season since Pedro Martinez accomplished that feat back in 2000 maybe with the Boston Red Sox. So Verlander, a monstrous campaign, very deserving. But once again, you can argue that Garrett Cole deserved to win the Cy Young even more, and it's something how they were teammates this season in Houston. Cole, now a free agent, and guess what? He is not re-signing with the Houston Astros this offseason.
Yeah, look, the offseason awards are interesting, fascinating, but at the same time, look, at the end of the day, it's all about the championship, and good for Justin Verlander. Obviously, you know, nobody's going to question what he brings to the table. Verlander has it, but we can ask now, seriously, the question, when a performer of Verlander's caliber gets into the biggest moment, the World Series, why has he struggled? I mean, you can't get a victory, a closeout victory, when you're arguably the ace, the number one guy in the staff. Sure, you know, it's nice to get accolades, but at the end of the day, if you want to rib Justin Verlander, all you got to do is be like, Ofer in the World Series. What's up with that? A guy like that, sometimes, you know, maybe, you know, late in the year, whether it be confidence, whether it be just knowing that, you know, maybe the first one that he gets can then, you know, allow him to then kind of feel a little bit less pressure. You know what I mean? That first one, that first World Series win he probably gets, maybe will unleash him and he'll be dominant. But he wasn't terrible. It's just wasn't good enough to get the W for the squad. He wasn't must-see JV. He was, okay, all right, JV in the World Series. So it's, you know, good for him. I'm glad that he continues to earn accolades for what he brings to the table. He's a solid pitcher, but we will in the second half talk about, you know, do some of the accolades that you now start to give the Astros just get washed away? Do we now have to potentially talk about banning the Astros, because this is not something where it's just going to be like, oh, they cheated, okay, bye. No, multiple journalists are going to investigate this. Multiple outlets are going to reach out to these individuals, these co-conspirators, and they're going to ask. I mean, The Athletic did a good job in terms of unleashing it and really looking into it, but, and guess who? We'll tease it. A former Tiger was the whistleblower. We shall talk about that right after this when we give love to one of the great sponsors of the network, the Detroit Sports Commission. I can't wait to talk to you about scandal and also some moves made from the Detroit Tigers. And you know what? Finally, Miguel Cabrera has heard our demands. He put himself on a diet, and we'll talk more about that and what we heard in some of the news and notes from the Detroit Tigers in the past few weeks right after this.
Scandalous times in Major League Baseball, but hey, the Detroit Sports Commission, our fine sponsor at the DSP Network, never having to deal with that because they are a great entity. And guess what? They are based in downtown Detroit, which, God, I mean, you look at downtown Detroit and what it looks like now compared to previous years and past decades, and it is beautiful now. And there, the Detroit Sports Commission is based, which has been bringing marquee events to our very region, that is the Metro Detroit area, since 2001, including the first and second rounds of the NCAA tournament just a couple of years ago. And much more greatness and great events are on the horizon. The Frozen Four is coming up in 2020 as well. So many other great events at the youth level, the amateur level, as in college and the NCAA, and professionally are on the horizon via the Detroit Sports Commission, which you can follow on Twitter and on Instagram at DET Sports. Also, make sure to check out their great work at their website of DetroitSports.org. And John, back here on Tiger Stuff with Chirco and Company, and it's been a while since you and I were joined at the hip almost here in studio, in our lovely studios in Sterling Heights, Michigan. Anyways, we're enjoying a lot of easy going, just great vibes here. Some aren't, though, in Major League Baseball right now, and are enduring scandalous times, such as the 2017 World Series champion Houston Astros, the runner-ups this year, and American League pennant winners in the Houston Astros, who have been under fire for using an outfield camera, computer screens, garbage cans, and baseball bats to steal signs throughout their World Series winning 2017 MLB campaign. Now, until really the present moment, though, John, it was unclear whether or not the team's illicit activities extended into the postseason. Now it's been widely reported that, yes, that was the case. Ugly times for Major League Baseball and the Houston Astros. You are naysaying them right now, giving them the Dikembe Mutombo treatment and saying, hey, no good here from the Houston Astros, huh?
I'm willing to say, if this is investigated and all the allegations are found to be true, you seriously might have to consider, because of the nature of the allegation. We're talking about cheating here. We're talking about the integrity of the game. We're talking about using cameras. We're talking about, facilitating information from the ballpark to the athletes on the field. I'm considering a ban. I'm saying, you know what? For 1, 2, 3 years,
a death penalty.
There is no Astro organization.
Ridiculous.
Yes, I think that this doesn't this reach the level of the Black Sox scandal and cheating and things like that. I mean, I'm talking about using cameras and, to fill people in. The Astros are accused of using cameras to then relay message to bullpen athletes so that they could, either give the thumbs up if the pitcher from the opponent was going to be a fastball and thumbs down if the pitch was going to be an off speed. So they were relaying signals to the batters so they knew what was coming, which is the highest form of cheating, the highest form of unethical behavior, because that, in essence, gives you a huge advantage. Imagine, Vito, in terms of, split-second decisions you got to make in terms of deciding whether it's going to be a fastball, off-speed pitch, curveball. You basically have less than a second to decide. But imagine if you got a signal and said, okay, I know it's going to be a fastball. Do you know, in terms of the quality of these hitters, what that does to a batter, the edge that it gives you? And I think that's the height of ridiculousness that the Astros would try and do this. One, that they tried it. Two, they got caught. And the individual that I spoke on before the break was Mike Fiers.
The whistleblower.
The whistleblower.
When you said whistleblower, by the way, I was thinking, are we going to talk about Donald Trump? No, you don't like talking about the president. But whistleblower in Major League Baseball in the form of former Tigers pitcher Mike Fiers. You are right.
Mike Fiers went to the papers, and he said, hey.
I got a story to tell. I'm Mr. Mike Fiers. I'm important here. Who's actually had 2 no-hitters in his career, so we make fun of him, throw some shade at him. But he's had an all right career.
Crafty.
You can say.
Crafty
Dude, yes.
So he comes out and he informs, and now the investigation's on. Am I overreacting? Is this not as egregious? Because cheating at that level, remember, this was done in 2017. Was there something significant that happened to the Astros in 2017?
They won, and their home splits were a lot better than on the road against the Dodgers in that Fall Classic in 2017 when you check out Altuve. All these great, talented dudes for the Houston Astros in their lineup. All those guys had better home stats than road stats against the Dodgers.
Vito, they won the World Series. They were champs. They got the brass ring. So how can you say that potentially this doesn't have significant ramifications and tarnish the legacy of the Astros? I mean, I'm starting maybe right now in terms of the record books. I'm putting that little asterisk right there. 2017 asterisk, Astros accused of cheating, stealing signs.
God.
Too much?
Way. Too much. Going too far.
Not too bad?
This is redunculous. Redunculous. Okay? You are incredulous over something that you should not be incredulous over. So I am of the mindset that you are overreacting right now. To give what I would term as the death penalty to the Dodgers or to the Houston Astros for 2-3 years, I think you said 2 to 3 seasons. Come on, man. Ain't going to happen whether or not it's right or not. And the Astros, what they did, no. It's horrible. It's unethical. And you spoke of that yourself. Sure, it is of the unethical nature. And Major League Baseball is a game full of integrity. Even though, remember, there has been that Black Sox scandal back in, what year was it? 1918? Okay, there was that scandal back then when players from that team were betting on themselves and were throwing the World Series and did. So that was horrible. And horrible mark on Major League Baseball back then. You've seen guys use steroids and then subsequently deal with the ramifications of that. There's been a lot of bad in baseball in the past. Even though the game is all about integrity and playing the game the right way in a morally upstanding and ethical fashion. But have ethics always been applied for these teams in Major League Baseball throughout the years? And has there been sign stealing in the past? Yeah, there has been. Just other teams have not been caught. Hey, if you don't get caught, it's not cheating. What have you talked about? Now, this is different, and speaking of collegiate athletics, but you've kind of brought this up and said that, well, Juwan Howard, in collegiate athletics, coaching Michigan hoops, well, if he does some dirty recruiting and gets a recruiter too to help Michigan win long term, then it's all right. That's dirty. That's shady. That's illegal too, illegal activity. That's recruiting that's illegal. So you've advocated for illegal activities in the past, and I know you have to win, and to win at the highest level. Well, okay. The Astros applied your mentality to winning at the highest level in 2017 to win the Fall Classic. So what's so shady and wrong about that if you've been all right with it and advocated for it in the past at other levels of sports, specifically in collegiate athletics? I know you have with Juwan Howard.
Yes.
You said it's all right maybe to illegally recruit a little bit. And many coaches have. How about John Calipari at UMass and at Memphis? How did he win? And he never won it all. He almost did at Memphis. But still, a lot of winning there, John. How did he get those recruits illegally? What's been going on? Let's just face Major League Baseball and talk about that now specifically.
Yeah,
this is a Tigers Talk and Major League Baseball podcast. There's been sign stealing in the past. It's happened.
But
it's been widespread. It just hasn't been caught, or to this magnitude, perhaps. And who knows, John, what will come out now in the aftermath? Have there been other teams that have been sign stealing and using this same mentality and approach, John, to get an upper hand?
Yeah, but we're talking about two different sports now. College athletics, there's.
But why would you advocate at any level for anybody?
The cheating involves kind of slipping some people some money, so that's okay in terms of
the Black Sox was money, so. Yeah. So, this is worse so to you then? Because Black Sox, hey, there's no comparison then. Because I think that's worse. I think betting on yourselves and throwing a World Series is worse than getting an advantage through simultaneously sign stealing. And at the highest level, using computers as well to steal signs, which I think, okay, is erroneous. It is unethical. But how do we know that other teams haven't applied this methodology in the past to get an upper hand? And what will come out now in the aftermath? I think other teams will be investigated and will be found out. Other teams have used this method to get an upper hand as well, John.
Okay, so let me flesh it out for you real fast. The point is that in college athletics, the acquisition of talent, I'm okay with potentially some financial gain from some of these athletes to join a certain franchise or certain college. Okay, now in terms of in game, I'm not for potentially in basketball, altering the basketball, changing the rim up a little bit. I'm not for in game alteration of the game. So in terms of baseball,
fair.
Stealing signs is really bad, and of course,
but other teams do it anyways. There's always been that tipping your pitches. What is that really? It's sign stealing. Tipping your pitches.
Frowned upon each time it happens.
Frowned upon.
You can't do it.
Frowned upon. That's the key term. Frowned upon. I'm going to use those two words again. Throw them into your face.
It's not illegal to steal signs, or do you think it's illegal to use a camera to potentially?
That's illegal.
Oh,
I'm saying sign stealing in general, overall wise, and I'm saying other teams probably have applied this method or would have done it if they were smarter. Isn't it smart what they did though to the Astros? But you're saying to instill a death penalty like the SMU football treatment where they got the death penalty. They're not going to get that though, John. Come on, man. It's Major League Baseball. It's not. There we go. I'll throw that in your face too. Where collegiate athletics is different. That's college. So that can be done. It's going to be done collegiately, I think, speaking, or at the high school level with a program that does some illegal activity. It's a Major League Baseball club. Are they really going to receive a death penalty?
So aren't you for stiff punishment of a violation of this nature?
Suspension of draft. You know what? You get draft picks taken away from you.
That's it?
Something like that.
Massive fine, a couple $1 million?
Massive fine. Millions of dollars.
Okay. So
millions of dollars.
So this is
egregious. But to strip them of a World Series title, I think it's taking it a little bit too far because how do we know every single time they actually did steal the signs? I know there's videos that have been circulating. All these videos on Twitter you can find very easily of the Astros stealing signs. But how do we know when and where? We won't know every single time in which they instituted this method of cheating to get the upper hand, which helped them win that Fall Classic in 2017. I just think it's very hard to prove every single time in which they use this method of cheating to get the upper hand too.
Real simple. If they did it in the World Series.
Bad. But I don't think you can strip them of a World Series crown. I mean, look at it like this, John. How does a team... Here's my point, too. I'm going to throw it in your face, and everybody else that really thinks this is wrong, which it is. I'm not saying it's not wrong, but I think some people are overblowing it because of this. The Tigers this year. You know what I'm going to bring up now, right? If they were to steal signs, how many more wins for them? That's my point here, John, and to everybody else. 50 wins? They won 47 games. They're not going to just reach the World Series miraculously now. You get my point? A bad team is bad. A good team is good. A great team is great. The Astros are already really, really good. We're already considered great. And I would consider them great. That team in 2017, the team this year as well, that won it all in 2017 and reached the Fall Classic by winning the American League pennant this past season. Those teams are already elite. So sure, they stole some signs, used some illegal activities, but they're already great. What would this do for a team like the Tigers, who are bottom feeders? How many more wins for a club like that, John?
Well,
that's my point. Wrong is wrong. Wrong is wrong. I stand for high standards and lower prices. What is that, Meyer? But I do. I stand for higher standards.
Okay.
But
listen, we can disagree on it.
To strip them of a World Series title, I think, is taking it a bit far. That's my point as well here, John.
And my theory is if a team engages in behaviors that are unethical and anti-rules and anti-baseball, and then I think you got to send a message that this should not be done ever again. Especially, Vito, this is not tipping signs. This is not the second baseman kind of gesturing. This is not pine tar. This is not that. This is an organized effort that takes organization, that takes multiple layers of planning, that has to be, information has to be relayed from a camera person to a bullpen person to on-field situation. So this is a little bit higher. Yeah, that's probably what you're saying is going to be the case, but I'm saying that a message has to be sent that, hey, you cannot engage in this type of behavior. This is egregious. This is an egregious attack on the sanctity of baseball, and it involves in-game manipulation, and I think that's where my stance is. And I agree with you. I don't think it's ever going to reach that level, but I'm just saying that's what I would do. If I was a commissioner, I would send a message that, hey, if you mess with the integrity of the game, we're going to have a massive problem here, and so you shall never, ever, no organization will ever want to do it again because look what happened. A franchise got booted out for a year. Not forever, but they got booted out.
The Black Sox. So you have big enough cojones to institute this. I don't think you would as commissioner.
Well,
you have relatively big cojones. I don't think big enough to do this. Even with that power as Commissioner Rob Manfred has as Major League Baseball commissioner.
Probably not.
You wouldn't be doing it. Now, let me say this. I will give you more validity for what you just said about giving them the death penalty if they were to do it again. Okay. If they were found to have done it again.
Multiple times.
Then, okay, a multiple offender, then maybe you do give them the postseason ban. How about a postseason ban? Can't make the postseason for a year or 2 years. Something like that I would be willing to oblige to if that was the case.
No doubt. Now, in terms of the Tigers news, the biggest news obviously that came out in the last couple of weeks has been the fact that Miguel Cabrera has said, look, I was embarrassed in 2019. My numbers weren't good. I obviously have an injury to my knee. I have to relieve the pressure, and I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to hire an in-house chef full-time to watch my nutrition and to get into good shape. Do you agree? And is this something that is too little too late? Because, look, I mean, we could have used Miguel in 2019, but hey, if there's 3-4 years left on his contract with big money on it, if we can get some production on it. But the big issue is this may be, in fact, too little too late because of the degenerative nature of the knee.
Oh, too little too late. A lot too late. Okay, not just too little, a lot too late at this point for Miguel Cabrera in the advanced stages of his Major League Baseball career. I mean, God, the guy's past 35 years old. He's not years young. He's years old at this point. He is of the declining nature, health-wise for sure, as you already harped upon, and we know. I mean, we can just speak about that all day, and we don't have to because we already have. And then his numbers across the board offensively, declining numbers. He had 12 home runs. 12 home runs, John. Okay? 12 in 136 games played. It's not like he played in 50 games and hit 12 bombs. That would have been more understandable. No. He hit 12 long balls in a $136 games played in 2019. Devastatingly bad. Hugely disappointing from Miguel Cabrera in 2019. And he's been really trending in this direction for a little while now. And at this point, you can say that, and I don't think you can even make the argument that he's going to turn it around. So you can easily say that, hey, you know what? Miguel Cabrera, it's not going to get much better for him. And we were, you spoke about him being embarrassed about his performance on the field. We were embarrassed for him, for this big guy who can't play first base now on a regular basis, might never even play it again, besides for sparingly for a game or two. And then hitting. He's been known for the art of hitting, and that's been his calling card. So if he can't hit, John, what does he do for your Major League Baseball organization? He can't even sell tickets for you anymore at the box office. Nobody's showing up at Comerica Park. And it's because of the team, but also because he can't hit like he used to. He is no longer even close to a superstar or to even a star caliber slugger.
Well, when you're looking at that much money and you're looking at, daily questions about your performance and people wondering about your reputation, and at the end of the day, probably, many people have told him, look, you have a chance to be successful still if you're healthy. Look, I know it's a small sample size, but the last couple weeks of the season, Miguel Cabrera was making some contact and making some solid contact. And Miguel just has to take it seriously. Yes, it is a little bit too little too late, but the Tigers, have already given him the money, and he doesn't want to go out like that. He doesn't want to go out where people say, yeah, he was a great hitter, but I think he still has some goals to try and attain. But the Tigers, unfortunately, aren't going to be competitive really at this point in time with or without a healthy Miguel Cabrera. Yeah, it might equate to 20 more wins in a season.
Yeah, what? 60, 65 wins?
Exactly.
62 wins or the most, something like that. I mean, they're still going to be really, really bad.
Exactly. So it's good for him. I think it'll be at least a draw if Miguel Cabrera can get back to hitting 20, 25 home runs, and it will at least help out in terms of morale to see him out there. Not, nobody wants to see Miguel, limp to the finish line. And that's kind of what started to happen, is a legend, a guy that people argue is an elite Major League Baseball talent, kind of struggling and going through the motions and not being able to contribute. It's sad to see. Nobody wants to see an athlete past their prime and then sticking around with big money struggling. It's a terrible formula. And fans don't like it, and media doesn't like to. Unfortunately, media has to ask those kind of questions. But it's a situation for Miguel Cabrera where if he can get into shape, stay healthy, produce, he can then reclaim his legacy and maybe get back into the argument of being one of the all-time great Major League Baseball hitters. So tell me, Vito, before we get out of here, some news was made regarding the Tigers and their management situation in terms of the minor league, some shuffling. Some people went around. Some coaches have been advanced. Some have been let go. Hit me with some state of the organization type stuff.
Really quick, Miguel Cabrera, shape up or get out. Retire. Okay, retire gracefully before it's really, really bad. Anyways, the Whitecaps have hired our buddy, Brian Pena, as their manager. So that's the most meaningful storyline to, I think, you and I, because he is our buddy, Brian Pena. Glad to see him keep succeeding and moving up the ranks there as a coach in the Tigers farm system. Anyways, want to get to this too really quick. Miguel Cabrera has won one World Series championship. I don't see him winning anymore. So he's never going to get to 5, which Derek Jeter did achieve with the New York Yankees. To this now, he headlines the National Baseball Hall of Fame 2020 class. Might be the only guy that gets in. Very comparable stats, so all-time in his career, to Alan Trammell's with the Detroit Tigers. Derek Jeter, really quick, 72.4 WAR all-time. Alan Trammell, all of those years spent with the Tigers, achieved a 70.7 mark. And both World Series MVPs that never won a regular season Most Valuable Award trophy. Now, both deserved to win one and missed out, unfortunately, on winning a MVP in the regular season. Now, really the difference maker is, and I'll bring up both sides of this, Derek Jeter better offensively, and you really can argue across the board pretty much. Jeter had the better offensive numbers throughout his major league career. You look at his totals, and they just are better all around. Jeter more home runs, 260 to Trammell's 185. Jeter also hit 310 in his career. Trammell hit 285. You look at RBIs, and Jeter recorded 1,311 RBIs. You look at Trammell, 1,003 ribbies. And you also look at the total amount of hits achieved. Jeter way over 3,000. Trammell at 2,365. Anyways, altogether, you can easily argue Jeter had the better offensive numbers throughout his big league career, with the OPS 800 as well. Trammell's below 800 at 767. Now to get to this, the flip side of things. Trammell had the better defensive numbers throughout his career. And when you consider the analytics, for sure, Tram had the better defensive numbers, even though Jeter had 5 gold gloves to Trammell's 4. But when you look at the defensive WAR, Trammell's far outweighs Jeter's, playing the same position, that is shortstop. And they both had the lengthy careers. But really, overall-wise, what I think really what hurt Trammell is playing with the Motown Bengals. Not getting enough love because of playing really for a small market, middle-tier market ball club at the very best. Where Jeter playing with the Bronx Bombers, winning all those World Series championships, and specifically, more than anything, what I'm trying to get at is that because he played on the East Coast and for a big market like New York, well, it gave him more love and recognition over his major league career than Trammell ever amassed as a member of the Detroit Tigers for all the years that he spent with them from 1977 to 96. And the last couple of years for Trammell, too, his numbers really dipped, and he didn't play in full seasons as a regular, where Jeter still did towards the very end. So all of that combined, Jeter, sure, had the better overall accolades, and because of the World Series championships, too, along with the World Series MVP that Trammell also had. But still, at the end of the day, what my major point is that Trammell's numbers are very, very comparable to Jeter's. Jeter had the better overall WAR, but very comparable in that stat as well. Once again, Jeter at 72.4, Trammell still above 70 at 70.7. So, anyways, to sum it all up, Trammell, an outstanding career, who he should have been voted in and trying in Cooperstown way before he was. I would have loved to have seen him way before he had to get in via that Modern Baseball Era Committee, because Trammell, one of the best shortstops of all time, and when you compare him to Jeter's career, it makes a point even more, I think, huge about the fact that Trammell should have gotten in way before he did.
Great baseball podcast, Vito. Always enjoy recording. Follow Vito on Twitter at Vito Jerome. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said, if you have any commentary regarding the Tigers or Miguel Cabrera, feel free. Our voicemail is always open, 248-579-8686, or you can reach out and message us via our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Yeah, I think what our plan will be going forward is a bi-weekly podcast, talking baseball, breaking down the news and happenings, and discussing all issues regarding the Tigers and things going on around Major League Baseball every 2 weeks until spring training hits, where we resume and crank back up. And next year, we're hoping that Vito and I can expand our coverage, talking about the Detroit Tigers, getting out there. I mean, it's been cool the last year and a half covering the majority of the Tigers games, watching what's been going on, details and the happenings in and around Comerica Park. So great stuff, Vito. Enjoyed the podcast recording. I look forward to talking to you next time.
Real quick, too, Mike Trout, another MVP award for himself. He's only 28, 3 MVPs, 2 runner-ups. Could have 5 MVP trophies, at this point, actually. Anyways, I just wish I had one of those, and John, I think, wishes as well. Guys, adios.